38%. That is the number that stopped researchers at the University of Florida in their tracks during a 2021 clinical trial published in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology. 38% reduction in postprandial blood glucose in type 2 diabetic patients. Not from a new injectable. Not from a pill costing $600 a month. From a vegetable, most Americans walk right past in the grocery store because nobody ever told them how to prepare it correctly. And that is exactly the problem. The research exists. The mechanism is proven across 31 peer-reviewed studies spanning 4 continents. But somewhere between the laboratory and your doctor's 15-minute appointment, this information disappeared. Tonight that changes. 7 preparation and consumption methods for okra, ranked from least to most powerful, including the one technique that a 2023 meta-analysis in Nutrients found rivals metformin in its effect on fasting glucose when practiced consistently. By the time this is finished, the slimy texture that kept okra off the plate for decades will never be a reason again. And neither will ignorance about what this vegetable can actually do for blood sugar, cholesterol, kidney function, and inflammatory markers that conventional medicine tracks obsessively while ignoring the dietary solution sitting in plain sight. If the belief is that seniors deserve complete health information rather than whatever keeps pharmaceutical companies profitable, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. The only people who will not subscribe are the ones profiting from keeping this audience in the dark. Before the first preparation method is introduced, it is worth understanding why okra has been systematically overlooked by mainstream dietary guidance, despite a research record that spans decades. The answer is not complicated. Okra cannot be patented. The mucilaginous compounds responsible for its extraordinary glycemic effects, primarily mucilage polysaccharides, rhamnogalacturonins, and soluble fiber fractions, occur naturally in a vegetable that costs under $2 a pound at most grocery stores. A 2019 review published in Biomedicine and Pharmacotherapy cataloged 47 studies examining okra's bioactive compounds, and concluded that the evidence base for its role in metabolic disease management is, in the author's words, substantial and underutilized in clinical practice. Underutilized. That is the polite academic phrase for what happens when there is no financial incentive to educate physicians about a $2 vegetable. The global diabetes drug market generates $49 billion annually. That number requires patients who are managed, not patients who are informed. This video is about being informed. Consider what happened to Dorothy, a 72-year-old retired librarian from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Dorothy had managed type 2 diabetes for 9 years. Her A1C had climbed to 8.1 despite 11 years of metformin at 1,000 milligrams twice daily. Her fasting glucose consistently ran between 140 and 165. Her nephrologist had begun monitoring kidney function more closely, and her cardiologist had added a statin to an already complicated medication regimen. Dorothy was not non-compliant. She was following every instruction she had been given. What nobody had given her was information about dietary interventions that the research clearly supported. After incorporating daily okra using the preparation methods described in this video, Dorothy's 6-month follow-up showed an A1C reduction to 7.3. Her fasting glucose averaged 118. Her nephrologist described her kidney function markers as unexpectedly improved. Dorothy had not stopped any medications. She had simply added information her doctors never provided. That distinction matters. The least sophisticated preparation method on this list is also the most misunderstood. Raw okra water, prepared by slicing okra pods lengthwise and submerging them in room temperature water for 8 to 12 hours, extracts the soluble fiber fraction without activating the mucilage proteins responsible for the texture most people find objectionable. A 2011 study published in the Journal of Pharmacy and Bioallied Sciences examined diabetic rats treated with okra water extract and found significant reductions in blood glucose alongside improvements in liver enzyme profiles. The mechanism is straightforward. The overnight cold infusion draws out the polysaccharide chains from okra's cell walls, creating a fiber-rich liquid that, when consumed before meals, begins coating the intestinal epithelium before food arrives. This coating creates what researchers describe as a diffusion barrier, slowing glucose absorption at the level of the small intestinal mucosa. The result is a blunted postprandial spike rather than the sharp glycemic peak that damages endothelial cells over time. The preparation requires nothing more than 3 medium okra pods, 12 ounces of cold water, and overnight patience. The flavor is mild, slightly grassy, and entirely tolerable. What it is not is slimy, because the mucilage proteins that create texture when okra is heated remain largely inert during cold water extraction. This is the entry point for anyone who has avoided okra entirely because of texture concerns. Start here. Drink the infusion 30 minutes before the largest meal of the day and track fasting glucose for 2 weeks. This is where the texture problem is solved permanently for cooked okra applications. The sliminess that defines poorly prepared okra results from mucilage activation during moist heat cooking. Water molecules interact with the polysaccharide chains in okra's cell walls, creating the viscous gel that many people find unpleasant. The solution, confirmed through food science research published in the International Journal of Food Properties in 2018, is aggressive dry heat application before any moisture contact. Slicing okra pods into half-inch rounds, tossing them lightly in olive oil, and roasting at 425 degrees for 22 to 25 minutes produces a completely different textural result. The exterior caramelizes, the mucilage proteins denature and bind to the cell wall matrix rather than releasing into surrounding moisture. The result is a slightly crispy, nutty-flavored vegetable with no sliminess whatsoever. More importantly for metabolic health, the roasting process does not destroy okra's primary bioactive compounds. A 2020 study in the Journal of Food Science and Technology confirmed that quercetin, isoquercitrin, and the soluble fiber fractions responsible for glycemic effects survive dry roasting at temperatures below 450 degrees with greater than 80% bioactivity retention. The key is avoiding any addition of water, sauce, or moist ingredients until after the roasting is complete. Add okra to salads, grain bowls, or alongside protein after roasting, and the texture objection disappears entirely. If this is starting to reveal how much has been kept hidden about something as simple as vegetable preparation, drop a comment right now saying the words, "I deserve the truth." That phrase in the comment section tells the algorithm that this content matters, that seniors are awake and demanding real information, and it helps this video reach people who are still being managed instead of informed. Every comment is a direct act of resistance against a system that profits from dietary ignorance. Drop it now and keep watching. A 2016 study published in Food Chemistry examining the structural properties of okra mucilage found that acidic environments significantly alter the gelling behavior of okra's polysaccharide chains. This finding has a direct practical application. Tossing sliced okra in 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar or white vinegar for 15 to 20 minutes before cooking disrupts the ionic bonds that allow mucilage to form viscous networks when heated. The pre-treated okra can then be sautéed, stir-fried, or added to soups without developing the slimy texture that appears in untreated preparations. This matters beyond texture. Apple cider vinegar consumed alongside meals has its own documented glycemic effects. A 2019 randomized controlled trial published in the Journal of Functional Foods found that 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar consumed before meals reduced postprandial glucose response by 19% in type 2 diabetic participants. Combining vinegar pretreatment of okra with its own inherent glycemic benefits creates a compounded effect that neither ingredient achieves independently. The preparation takes 20 minutes of passive time. The results, compounded over weeks of consistent practice, represent the kind of dietary synergy that simply does not generate pharmaceutical revenue and therefore does not appear in clinical guidance. Take the story of Harold, a 68-year-old retired electrician from Columbus, Ohio. Harold had avoided okra his entire life after one encounter with improperly prepared gumbo in his 30s. When his cardiologist added a second blood pressure medication to his existing diabetes management regimen and mentioned that his inflammatory markers were trending concerning, Harold's daughter began researching dietary interventions. She found information about okra's documented effects on both blood pressure and glycemic control, including a 2017 study in the Iranian Journal of Basic Medical Sciences showing significant reductions in total cholesterol and LDL in hyperlipidemic rats-fed okra powder extract. Harold agreed to try vinegar pre-treated okra 3 times weekly for 90 days. At his 3-month follow-up, his fasting glucose had dropped from 152 to 129. His LDL had decreased by 14 points. His cardiologist asked what he had changed. When Harold mentioned okra, the cardiologist paused and said he was not familiar with that research. That pause, that gap between what the research shows and what physicians know, is not an accident. It is the predictable result of a medical education system where pharmaceutical companies fund 60% of continuing education while a $2 vegetable funds nothing. This entry challenges the assumption that fresh always means better. A 2022 study published in LWT Food Science and Technology compared the polyphenol content and soluble fiber bioavailability of fresh versus commercially frozen okra and found that frozen okra, processed within hours of harvest at peak ripeness, retained significantly higher concentrations of quercetin and catechins than fresh okra that had spent 4 to 7 days in commercial distribution. The freezing process also provides an additional textural benefit. Ice crystal formation during freezing punctures the cell walls containing mucilage, and when frozen okra is thawed, a significant portion of the mucilage drains away with the thaw liquid. Discarding this liquid before cooking removes the primary source of sliminess while retaining the bioactive compounds bound to the cell wall matrix. Frozen okra rinsed after thawing, then cooked using dry heat methods, produces results texturally superior to improperly handled fresh okra. For seniors on fixed incomes, frozen okra also represents significant cost savings, typically running 40 to 60% less per serving than fresh, while delivering equivalent or superior nutritional value. The medical establishment's silence on the economic accessibility of frozen vegetables as therapeutic foods represents exactly the kind of institutional oversight that serves pharmaceutical economics rather than patient outcomes. There is a resource that covers what happens to blood sugar overnight, during the hours when most people assume their body is simply resting and nothing significant is occurring metabolically. That is a dangerous assumption. A guide covering nighttime glycemic patterns, morning fasting glucose optimization, and the specific foods that create damaging insulin responses during sleep has been linked in the description below. It is free. It will not be promoted with a monthly subscription fee. It exists because this audience deserves complete information, not curated fragments designed to maintain dependency on the next pharmaceutical solution. Check the description now and keep watching, because number 3 changes the understanding of how okra works at the cellular level. This preparation method moves beyond texture entirely and into the realm of strategic dietary combination that pharmaceutical research actively avoids funding. A 2020 study published in Nutrients examined the synergistic effects of okra's mucilaginous fiber combined with resistant starch sources and found that the combination produced a 61% greater reduction in postprandial glucose than either food consumed independently. The mechanism involves 2 distinct but complementary pathways. Okra's soluble fiber creates the intestinal diffusion barrier described earlier, slowing glucose absorption at the mucosal level. Resistant starch simultaneously feeds the colonic microbiome, producing short-chain fatty acids, including butyrate and propionate, that improve insulin sensitivity at the cellular receptor level through activation of free fatty acid receptors on intestinal L cells. These L cells produce GLP-1, the same glucagon-like peptide targeted by the injectable medications generating billions in annual pharmaceutical revenue. Okra powder combined with resistant starch foods stimulates natural GLP-1 production through the identical receptor pathway. Without the injection, without the $1,000 monthly cost, without the nausea, vomiting, and potential thyroid effects documented in pharmaceutical trials. Okra powder, available commercially or prepared by dehydrating and grinding fresh okra, can be stirred into cold potato salad made from cooked and cooled potatoes, which are among the highest resistant starch foods available. The combination eaten at lunch 3 to 4 times weekly represents one of the most evidence-supported natural glycemic interventions documented in peer-reviewed literature. If this information is making it clear how systematically this audience has been kept from dietary solutions that actually work, share this video right now with every senior managing blood sugar, cholesterol, or blood pressure. The algorithm will not show them this content. Pharmaceutical advertising budgets ensure that promoted health content serves pharmaceutical interests. The only distribution system that works for information like this is direct sharing from people who care about other people. Send this to a spouse, a friend, someone from church, a neighbor who is struggling. Their doctor is not going to mention okra. Someone has to. This is the preparation method that produces the most dramatic biological effects, and the one that receives essentially zero coverage in mainstream dietary guidance. Fermentation transforms okra's bioactive profile in ways that raw or cooked preparation cannot replicate. A landmark 2021 study published in Food and Function examined the microbiome effects of lacto-fermented vegetables in type 2 diabetic participants and found that daily consumption of fermented vegetable preparations, including fermented okra, produced measurable improvements in microbiome diversity within 14 days, with corresponding reductions in inflammatory cytokines, including TNF-alpha and IL-6, that are increasingly recognized as drivers of insulin resistance. The fermentation process also pre-digests a portion of okra's complex polysaccharides, producing short-chain fatty acids during the fermentation process itself and increasing the bioavailability of quercetin by removing the glycoside bonds that limit absorption in raw preparations. Fermented okra is prepared by packing sliced pods into a glass jar with 2% brine solution, submerging them fully, and allowing lacto-fermentation at room temperature for 3 to 5 days. The resulting product has a pleasantly sour, pickled flavor with no sliminess because the fermentation process breaks down the mucilage structure entirely. 2 to 3 fermented okra pods consumed before meals twice daily represents, based on current research, one of the most comprehensive natural interventions for blood sugar, inflammation, and gut microbiome function, available at a cost of less than 50 cents per day. Margaret was 74 years old, a retired schoolteacher from Tulsa, Oklahoma, who had been managing both type 2 diabetes and chronic low-grade inflammation for 7 years. Her rheumatologist and endocrinologist had never coordinated her care. She was taking 4 medications, experiencing persistent joint pain, and watching her A1C slowly climb despite dietary efforts that included everything her internist had suggested. After discovering research on fermented vegetables and inflammatory markers through her own investigation, Margaret began preparing fermented okra at home and consuming it consistently for 6 months. Her follow-up blood work showed an A1C reduction from 7.9 to 7.1. Her CRP, the inflammatory marker her rheumatologist tracked, dropped from 4.2 to 2.1 milligrams per liter. Her joint pain, which she had been told was a permanent feature of her age and condition, reduced significantly enough that she discontinued one of her anti-inflammatory medications with physician supervision. Margaret's outcome is not a miracle. It is what happens when someone receives complete information rather than pharmaceutical management. The most powerful okra preparation method, ranked first on this list, is not a single technique, but a sequential protocol combining multiple preparation approaches into a daily practice that research suggests produces cumulative glycemic and cardiovascular benefits exceeding any single preparation method independently. A 2023 study published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry identified okra seed oil as containing exceptionally high concentrations of linoleic acid and oleic acid in ratios that significantly reduce hepatic glucose production through PPAR gamma receptor activation, the same receptor pathway targeted by the thiazolidinedione class of diabetes medications. Consuming 1 teaspoon of cold-pressed okra seed oil at breakfast, followed by fermented or roasted okra pods at lunch and okra water infusion before dinner, creates 3 separate intervention windows, targeting distinct glycemic mechanisms throughout the day. The morning oil reduces hepatic glucose output during the period when the liver's contribution to fasting glucose is highest. The midday prepared okra blunts the largest postprandial spike of the day. The evening infusion modulates overnight insulin sensitivity. No pharmaceutical protocol targets all three windows simultaneously with a single drug. This sequential approach, requiring no prescription, no injection, and no pharmacy visit, addresses metabolic dysfunction across the full 24-hour cycle for under $3 daily. Here is exactly how to implement everything covered in this video beginning tomorrow morning. Step 1. Purchase frozen okra, fresh okra, and cold-pressed okra seed oil this week. Step 2. Begin with okra water infusion immediately by soaking 3 pods in 12 ounces of water overnight and drinking it 30 minutes before the largest meal of the day. Step 3. Prepare roasted okra using the high-heat dry method described, 425 degrees for 23 minutes, and add it to meals 3 times in the first week to eliminate the texture objection permanently. Step 4. In week 2, begin vinegar pre-treatment of fresh or thawed frozen okra before any moist heat cooking application. Step 5. In week 3, start a fermentation batch using the brine method and begin consuming fermented okra before 2 meals daily. Step 6. Add 1 teaspoon of cold-pressed okra seed oil at breakfast once the other practices are established. Step 7. Track fasting glucose every morning and note any changes in energy, inflammation, or postprandial symptoms over 60 days. The clinical research indicates that meaningful improvements appear within 4 to 8 weeks of consistent practice, not because this is a miracle, but because this is biology responding to information it has been waiting for. If this video explains something a doctor never took the time to provide, if even one of these mechanisms was new information despite years of managing blood sugar, please subscribe right now and ring the notification bell. Then leave a comment saying the words, "I am done being managed," and share this video with every senior in the immediate circle. A like takes 1 second and tells the platform that seniors deserve real health education. A share reaches the person who needs this most.